Hi there, welcome to the channel or welcome back. My name is Angela. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my finished dresses for Project Dress a Girl 2025. I showed a little bit of a sneak peek in my last video. Today I'm going to go into a little bit more detail, talk about the two different patterns that I used, what I liked about the patterns, what I didn't, and will I be using these patterns next year? If you're ready, let's jump in. So I'm going to start it off by showing the two dresses that I used the McCall's pattern for. Let's talk about the pattern first, and then I'll show you the dresses close up and talk about the fabrics. So the pattern is M6262. It's a easy stitch and save. And of course I was so drawn to the front of the cover of the pattern because it's so cute. I'll bring it in a little closer there. How cute is that? This is kind of an old pattern. Let's see if I can find the published dates. 2011. So yeah, it's getting to be in the pretty old category, I guess I would say. I did get this on eBay or Etsy last year just for Project Dress a Girl. So I did not buy this pattern back when it was still in print. It's kind of what you might expect. It's similar to some of the free dress patterns that are out there. And I did make a couple of changes, or at least one big change to the version that I use, which I'll talk about here in a moment. And a couple of things that I liked about this pattern. One, it's just too darn cute. Two, it does come in multiple size ranges. It goes from 2 all the way up to 8, so that's pretty nice. It has a lot of options, and it has a real cute little flower pocket detail there. And I made version B, the one at the bottom there, the pink one. I did not put the rickrack trim on it. And I did that same view for both of my dresses here using a contrast fabric for the pockets. And instead of doing just the plain strap like the pattern calls for, I made 2 straps per side so that it could tie in a little bow up here at the shoulders. So I did that. I did it that way last year and I liked it so much I did it that way again this year. I feel like it might make the dress a little more adjustable, so that's kind of the main reason I did it, and plus it's just really cute to have that bow detail. The back is just kind of plain. I do want to note that on this one I wanted a longer dress, so I added this little band here at the bottom. And I had intended to make this a ruffle, but forgot to cut it out longer. So it ended up being, I had to just make it the same width, like a straight band rather than a ruffle detail at the bottom there. And of course I have my Project Dress a Girl label. I put the labels on the pockets this year. I'm pretty sure last year I put it up here at the strap. I think that's how I did it. This is the same fabric that I used for a dress, the same pattern, same dress last year, but without the band. And this is fabric that I had intended to use last year, but didn't get around to it. I made 3 dresses last year, meaning for this to be number 4. Didn't get around to it, so I did it for this year. But I thought it's so cute. I do want to talk about a couple of things with the pattern that I did not care for, and I learned kind of the hard way when I used this same pattern last year. And by the way, these are size 4, so I used size 4. I had hoped to maybe do a larger size, but I didn't have enough fabric left to do that, so I just stuck with the size 4, which is what I made last year. So with this pattern, it does call for facings all around the top edge, and I had such trouble with the underarm seams last year. It comes to a point, which I kind of rounded it off a little bit, remembering what a pain this point was last year. And I also just did a self-made bias trim around the edging rather than the facings. The facings gave me such trouble last year, and I recalled that, and I actually had made a note on my pattern instructions So in case I had forgotten like what a pain it was or how much I struggled with it, that I would do something different if I made it again. So luckily that note was there waiting for me. And so I just used the bias trim. It was a little bit easier going around this little underarm point there, but it was still not the easiest. And when I say that it wasn't, that it was a struggle, it was so bulky and bunched up, even though I trimmed it, graded, you know, clipped it and all that under here, it just wouldn't lay right with the facings. So it does do a little bit better with just using the bias trim, but it's still very bulky right in there, even though I did try to trim it as best as I could. Either way, I think once it's on the girl who's going to be wearing it, it won't be such a big issue because I think it'll lay pretty flat when it's going like around the, you know, the underarm side of her body there. So I think it should be okay, but sewing it wasn't the easiest, and it was such a struggle that I think I'm going to retire this pattern and maybe not use this pattern again, at least not in the next, you know, foreseeable years that I participate in this project. Either way, I'm so happy with the way that the dress has turned out. I love having this band here to make it a little bit longer. So maybe it could be worn by an older girl since it's longer and since the straps are adjustable. So enough about that pattern. The other pattern that I used for this dress was a free pattern by Elisa at Thoughtful Creativity, and it's an A-line dress. Let me show you the dress real quick and then we'll talk about the pattern. So it's a cute little, this is a size 2 to 4. That's what she rates it at. And it has a nice little ruffle at the bottom, again with contrasting pockets. And for the armhole edges and the neckline, we're using bias binding to do that, to make a little band there. And this one, I guess because of the way the pieces are cut there, it wasn't nearly as much of a struggle getting the underarm portion to be smooth and kind of lay flat. And I'm thinking that, like comparing it to this compared to the other dress, I can see that there's a little bit of a difference. I feel like this just came to like just a real sharp V, which was where all the trouble was coming from, whereas this was a little bit more rounded. So I think that's why it wasn't so hard to deal with. So, and this one, the neck binding comes together in the back. There's a little keyhole here. Let me undo that. So there's a little keyhole and you just tie the two binding ends together to make a little bow at the back neck there. I am in love with this dress, and I don't know if it's because of the little ruffle or because of this cute little orange gingham fabric, but this is definitely my favorite dress of the 3 this year, even though I do love the other 2. So let's talk about the pattern a little bit. This pattern is freely available. I'll link to Elisa's video below. Her channel is Thoughtful Creativity. I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with her channel. And I want to say that every year for the project, she puts out a free pattern, or at least most years in recent years. So this was the pattern from 2021, I think. But again, I'll link that video below in case you want to take a look. She does a walkthrough tutorial of the whole pattern, and there's a link where you can go to her website and download the pattern. So it's pretty simple. I've got my pieces kind of folded up here. So this is, it's just the front, and this was where the pocket was. I cut that out so I could use it as, you know, the pattern piece for my pockets. Got some thread stuck on there. And then the back is, it's kind of almost a mirror image of the front. It has like a little cutout here for the keyhole. And what I did, I cut out and taped the instructions onto this pattern piece so I would always have it together and I wouldn't lose it. So for this, You'll need cotton fabric 44 inches wide and 30 inches long for one dress. You cut 2 pieces of ruffles, each 5 inches wide and 36 inches long. Bias tape 1 inch wide and 81 inches long, but it doesn't have to be a continuous piece. And she gives the details for how much you'll need for the armholes, for the keyhole, and the neckline. And you do have to remember to add the hem allowance and the seam allowances, but she notes that right here on the pattern piece that those are not included on this. This was super simple to make. I definitely recommend watching her tutorial. I kind of like did it my own way, so to speak, but when it came to how the binding was attached to the armholes and the neckline and the keyhole, the way that she showed it on her tutorial was much easier than how I did it. So next time I'm going to remember to watch her video again when I go to make my dress. I think that this is going to become maybe my new go-to dress for Project Dress a Girl. Not that I won't try other patterns, but I was just so pleased with how much easier this one was than these. Although they're both just as cute, but this one didn't give me as many headaches. So thanks, Elisa. It was a great pattern, and I had so much fun making it. Can't wait to make more dresses using your pattern. The only negative I would say, and it's not really a negative per se, but it only comes in the one size. So she says that it's for sizes 2 to 4, that it'll fit 2 and 3-year-olds and maybe some 4-year-olds. So that's kind of what we're looking at with sizing there, and that was the only size option for the pattern. So that's kind of the only drawback on that one. So with that, I do want to encourage you guys to check out all of the other YouTube videos for Project Dress a Girl this year. If you just type in your search bar on YouTube, hashtag Project Dress a Girl 2025, you should come up with a whole long list of all the people that have made videos with their dresses this year. We're kind of winding down, at the end of the month. Mine is probably one of the last videos for the month. I know that Mari of Mari Sews had a whole roster or schedule of everyone who was participating. So be sure and check out all the other videos. There's some really good ones out there and a whole bunch of cute dresses. Also be sure and keep an eye on Mari's channel and Instagram, where she's doing the unboxing of all the dresses that are getting sent in. I'm going to turn my dresses into a local ambassador here who's happy to take them, which is, an option for the project. So that pretty much wraps up my Project Dress a Girl efforts for this year. I love doing this every year. It's so rewarding, so much fun. And if you've been able to make any dresses, let us know in the comments below. I'd love to hear. If you're on Instagram and you're sharing your dresses, put your Instagram handle below. I'd love to check out your dresses for the project. And I hope that you'll come back next time when I'll have a tutorial or a sew-along ready for you for a new look skirt that I'm working on. And that about wraps it up for today. Thank you so much for watching the video. I do appreciate it so much. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, a thumbs up, subscribe, share it with your friends if you think that they might enjoy it too. And I hope to see you next time. And until then, remember, just keep sewing.